Today, May 9th, 2026, the silence inside the gates of Kensington Palace has finally been broken by a sound that will echo through history. This is not a rumor. This is not a tabloid speculation. A classified document, authorized by Prince William himself, has just been leaked, confirming the total collapse of Meghan Markle's global empire. The royal line has been drawn, and for the first time in over 1,000 years, the crown has decided to strike back with surgical precision. This is a royal takedown, and it just turned deadly serious. Meghan Markle believed her future was set in stone. She had secured the A-list deals, the global fame, and a multi-million-dollar brand built entirely on one powerful word, Duchess. But as of this morning, that foundation has turned to dust. Prince William, acting no longer just as an heir but as a cold, calculated strategist, has delivered a blow so lethal that no amount of PR damage control can fix it. There were no warnings. There were no televised interviews to prepare the public. It was a silent executive order that stripped away the one thing her empire could not survive without: her royal legitimacy. The world woke up today to a new reality. The royal protocol has been shifted in a way that feels like a silent revolution. The policy is short, sharp, and irreversible. From this moment forward, only working royals will be permitted to retain their official titles, their roles, and their institutional privileges. For non-working royals, specifically Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the game is over. They have lost all remaining status. This was not a personal feud or a family spat. It was a professional declaration. William has effectively signaled to the world that the British monarchy will no longer serve as a backdrop for celebrity ventures or Hollywood profit margins. Behind closed doors, this move has been in development for months. William did not act alone. He involved constitutional lawyers and international legal aids to ensure that this framework was airtight. He believed that the slow erosion of the monarchy came from too much tolerance for blurred lines, and today, he has redrawn them with permanent ink. The result is a new framework for 2024 and beyond, leaving no room for exploitation or personal interpretation. Meghan and Harry's post-royal endeavors, ranging from their massive Netflix contracts to the Archwell Foundation, no longer have the shield of royal cover. For Meghan, the impact was immediate and devastating. Her team in California has been in a state of absolute panic since the early hours of the morning. Without the royal connection, the business of being Duchess Meghan loses its magic, its authority, and most importantly, its exclusivity. She wasn't just a public figure, she was a brand built on a title. Remove the word Duchess, and the authority she commanded in Hollywood boardrooms starts to unravel. The shine that once opened the doors to Oprah and Spotify has dimmed overnight. William knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't striking at a person. He was hitting the foundation of a commercial empire. For years, the Duchess title was used strategically to trademark products, media, and skincare lines. It was the anchor for every contract. But the moment William's new framework took effect, every project carrying the Sussex brand became vulnerable. Her strongest selling point is now a legal liability. The palace had anticipated every move. While Meghan's legal team was racing to find a loophole, William was already 3 steps ahead. This isn't just about a name change. It is about the total removal of royal aura from a private business. The message is clear. If you do not serve the crown, you do not get to wear it. Meghan thought she was playing a high-stakes game of chess, but William had already finished the game before she even moved her first piece. But as the world watches the fallout of this initial strike, a much darker secret is beginning to surface. Meghan's team made a desperate, last-minute play to legally own the title before the palace could take it away, leading to a confrontation that has never happened in the history of the British crown. They believed they could outmaneuver 1,000 years of tradition with a single piece of paperwork. They were wrong. And what William did next will change the meaning of the word royal forever. To understand why the fallout of May 9th, 2026 is so catastrophic, you have to understand the sheer, staggering value of a single word. In the cold, high-stakes corridors of Hollywood and the global luxury market, prestige is the only currency that truly matters. For Meghan Markle, the title Duchess of Sussex was never just a ceremonial gift from a late queen, it was the master key. It was the brand anchor. It was the one thing that transformed an actress into a global power player. But as we are witnessing today, Prince William realized that to dismantle the empire, he didn't need to fight a public war of words. He just needed to take back the key. Since 2018, the term Duchess has been the engine behind every multi-million-dollar contract signed in Montecito. When the Sussexes walked into boardroom meetings with streaming giants, the conversation didn't start with their creative vision. It started with the title. That single word secured a deal with Netflix worth over $100 million. It secured a massive partnership with Spotify and paved the way for a publishing deal that shattered records. In fewer than 5 years, Meghan didn't just join the royal family, she weaponized the brand. In the eyes of the global elite, she wasn't just another celebrity, she was royal. And royalty sells at a premium that no Hollywood star can match. Prince William, however, has been watching this commercialization with a growing sense of institutional dread. For him, this was never about jealousy or a brotherly rift. It was about the slow, agonizing erosion of an institution that has survived for over 1,000 years. William believes that the monarchy's strength lies in its exclusivity and its commitment to service. The moment that aura is used to sell podcasts, lifestyle brands, or luxury skincare, the magic of the crown begins to fade. He saw the Sussex brand not as an extension of the family, but as a parasite feeding off the host. By January 2020, when the couple officially stepped away from their duties, the lines became dangerously blurred. They were out of the firm, but they were still using the firm's most valuable intellectual property to build a private fortune. William's strategy was simple but devastating. If you aren't doing the work, you don't get the brand. He recognized that Meghan's entire media empire, valued at more than $120 million, was built on a foundation of borrowed light. If he could extinguish that light, the empire would be forced to stand on its own, and he knew, better than anyone, that without the royal link, the magic would vanish. But Meghan's team was not naive. They knew the palace might one day try to reclaim the title. In a move that can only be described as a bold business play, her legal advisors began a frantic race to own the identity. By early 2024, whispers began to circulate that Meghan's team was filing trademark applications across multiple jurisdictions, including the United Kingdom and the United States. They sought to trademark Duchess of Sussex for over 30 categories of goods and services. They weren't just looking for a title, they were looking for a legal shield. They believed that if they could own the name through trademark law, the palace would be powerless to stop them from using it commercially. This was the ultimate gamble. It was an attempt to drag centuries of royal tradition into a modern courtroom. Meghan's camp believed they had found a loophole. They thought they could outmaneuver the crown with paperwork. If the palace tried to strip the title, they would simply sue for brand infringement. It was a strategy designed to force William and King Charles into a corner. Either let them keep using the title for profit or face a high-profile, embarrassing legal battle that would dominate the headlines for years. What they didn't realize was that William had seen this move coming from miles away. While Meghan was focused on the rules of business, William was focused on the rules of the state. In March 2024, under the shadow of secrecy, Kensington Palace's legal task force had already updated internal royal policies to restrict the private commercialization of any designation granted by the Crown. They invoked the Royal Names Act and historical precedents that date back nearly a century. They built a legal buzzsaw and waited for Meghan to walk into it. The tension reached a breaking point when Meghan's team finally filed their application. They expected a standard review process. Instead, they received a response within 72 hours that signaled a total blockade. Every move they made to secure the brand was met with a pre-prepared institutional no. William had turned the very thing she relied on her legal and branding strategy into a trap. He allowed her to invest millions into a brand identity that he was already in the process of making illegal. And yet, the trademark denial was only the beginning. The real surgical strike wasn't a public court case or a branding dispute. It was something far more traditional, far more silent, and infinitely more permanent. As Meghan's team scrambled to save their trademarks, a secret letter was being drafted in the heart of London. A letter that would render every trademark, every contract, and every brand deal obsolete in less than 400 words. This letter contained a directive so final that it didn't even require a public announcement to destroy the Sussex Empire. And when the king finally put his pen to the paper, the fate of the Duchess was sealed forever. The real bombshell of this saga was not a public shout. It was a whisper written on a single sheet of heavy, cream-colored parchment. While Meghan Markle's legal team worked overtime in California to protect her commercial interests, the killing blow had already been signed, sealed, and nearly delivered from the heart of London. In late April, just weeks before this May 9th, 2026 crisis, Prince William authorized a formal letter to be drafted under the strict supervision of the most elite royal legal advisors. This was the document that would change everything, and yet, It was fewer than 400 words long. The purpose of this letter was deceptively simple: to enforce a total and permanent ban on the use of the HRH designation His or Her Royal Highness for any non-working royal across all official, public, and commercial domains. It was a quiet but lethal strike. In the world of the British monarchy, an HRH title is the ultimate shield. It is what separates a mere celebrity from a sovereign entity. Without it, you are no longer a representative of the state. You are a private citizen with a famous last name. Once King Charles signed that letter, the decision became irreversible royal law. There was no negotiation, no interview, and no chance for a rebuttal. The letter stated clearly that as of June 1st, 2026, the use of HRH must be discontinued immediately. No more vanity projects using the royal crest. No more business proposals signed with the authority of the crown. You received the letter, and you were done. This is the traditional way the royal family makes its hardest decisions, not through a press conference, but through silence and signatures. The impact, however, was far from silent. Copies of this directive were immediately archived at Windsor, and a new protocol was established to enforce compliance through media corrections and diplomatic adjustments. It was the most direct royal strike in recent memory, and Meghan's empire was directly in its path. Even before the ink was dry on that parchment, whispers of the directive reached Meghan's inner circle in Montecito. The reaction was nothing short of a frantic scramble. Legal teams, branding consultants, and high-priced PR managers began meeting in emergency sessions. Could they rebrand quickly enough? Could the title be trademarked before the palace made the announcement public? They knew they had less than 4 weeks to mount a defense before the June 1st deadline. But what they did not know, and what is only being revealed today, is that Prince William had anticipated every single move. He wasn't just reacting to her business plays, he was baiting her into a trap. The tension during those 4 weeks was palpable. Behind the scenes, Meghan's team tried to reach out to the palace for a clarification of the terms, hoping to find a loophole that would allow her to keep the HRH status for her international philanthropic work. The response from William's office was a cold, professional silence. The message was sent: the era of half in, half out was over. For years, the Sussexes had occupied a gray area, stepping away from duties but keeping the prestigious branding that came with them. William's letter turned that gray area into a hard black line. As the realization set in that the HRH status was truly vanishing, Meghan's team played their final card. It was a move born of desperation, a bold and defiant attempt to take ownership of her own identity before the crown could strip it away. They believed that if they could trademark Duchess of Sussex in the United States and the United Kingdom, the palace wouldn't be able to stop her from using it. After all, how can a king stop a corporation from using its own legally registered trademark? They viewed it as a brilliant maneuver to outmaneuver 1,000 years of tradition with modern intellectual property law. What they failed to understand was that they were no longer dealing with the old, tolerant guard. Prince William had spent years studying the vulnerabilities of the monarchy, and he knew that the crown's power was not just symbolic, it was constitutional. He had seen the trademark move coming from miles away. In fact, he had been waiting for it. The moment Meghan's lawyers filed that paperwork, they weren't securing her future. They were providing the palace with the very evidence needed to shut her down for good. The palace had already prepared a countermove so final that it would send a ripple across every royal watcher's timeline. The Queen of Branding was about to walk straight into a legal buzzsaw, and the crown hadn't even flinched. The secret letter was just the beginning of the end. By attempting to own the crown, Meghan had inadvertently given William the perfect reason to erase her royal status entirely. But the most shocking twist in this power play wasn't the letter or the trademark. It was what William did next to ensure that no royal, not even his own brother, could ever exploit the family name again. And as we move into the next phase of this takedown, the true scale of William's royal status clarification directive is about to be exposed. The audacity of the move was unmatched in the history of the British monarchy. By August 1st, 2024, Meghan Markle's team had officially filed a formal trademark application for the phrase Duchess of Sussex across multiple international jurisdictions. This was not a small, defensive filing. It was a massive, sweeping land grab for intellectual property, covering more than 30 categories ranging from high-end skincare and digital media to books, merchandise, and global philanthropic services. The goal was transparent: to seize legal ownership of a royal title and turn it into a private, commercial fortress that the palace could never touch. Her legal advisors believed they had found the ultimate loophole. In their eyes, if the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the United Kingdom Intellectual Property Office granted these rights, Meghan would possess a legal shield that transcended the whims of the royal family. They were betting that the crown would be too afraid of a public, litigious scandal to interfere. Internally, the Sussex camp knew that the HRH directive we discussed earlier was a ticking time bomb. They needed a win, a massive, legal win that would allow Meghan to continue leveraging the prestige of the title in the elite boardrooms of Hollywood and Silicon Valley. Her entire media empire, estimated at a value of more than $120 million, depended on this one word. But the Queen of Branding had underestimated the sovereign of strategy. Prince William had not been sitting idly by while these applications were being drafted. Behind the scenes, the palace's legal team had been preparing for this exact scenario since March 2024. William had authorized a comprehensive update to the internal royal status policy, specifically designed to restrict the private commercialization of any designation granted by the Crown. When Meghan's application hit the desks of the trademark examiners, it didn't just meet a standard review named Tronghun, it hit a prearranged institutional wall. Within 72 hours, the UK office flagged the application for special review. The legal grounds for the rejection were devastatingly precise, rooted in the Royal Names Act of 1934 and reinforced by the modernization reforms of the 1990s. These laws explicitly stated that royal titles are not personal property. They are the sovereign property of the Crown. They cannot be trademarked, sold, or used as commercial vehicles without the express, written permission of the reigning monarch. By attempting to own the title, Meghan had inadvertently violated one of the most sacred legal traditions of the British state. The fallout was immediate and public. By August 6th, headlines like Meghan's title bid blocked by Palace and Duchess trademark hits Royal Wall dominated every social feed and news cycle. It wasn't just a legal defeat, it was a total narrative collapse. The world began to see the fragility of the brand. If she didn't own the name, what did she actually have? Major corporate partners, who had signed on for the royal aura, began to quietly invoke key man clauses and reputational risk or force majeure stipulations in their contracts. In the world of global business, blurry means risky, and Meghan's brand had just become the riskiest investment in Hollywood. William remained silent through it all. He didn't need to issue a statement. The legal framework spoke for him. He had effectively closed every back door and softened every edge that once allowed royals to step away from their duties while keeping the financial perks of the name. As one palace insider famously whispered, this wasn't an attack, it was a cleanup. William had drawn a hard line in the sand, and for the first time in years, the Crown was the one doing the enforcing. However, as the dust began to settle on the trademark disaster, the true scope of William's plan began to emerge. This was never just about Meghan and Harry. That was only the first phase. In September 2024, William unveiled a document that would send shockwaves through every branch of the royal family tree. It was a decree that would prove even being a blood relative was no longer enough to secure your place at the table. And as we look at the details of this royal status clarification directive, it becomes clear that William was preparing to do the unthinkable. He was about to fire his own family. The drama we are witnessing today, May 9th, 2026, did not erupt in a vacuum. While the world stares at the wreckage of Meghan Markle's brand, the most dangerous fire was actually burning inside the private chambers of Buckingham Palace. This is the story of a father and a son, two men who love the same crown but have two violently different visions of how to save it. For months, a quiet but intense civil war has been raging between King Charles III and Prince William, a battle between the heart of a father and the cold logic of a future king. King Charles, throughout his reign, has always been the great reconciler. He is a man who believes in the power of family unity. For more than 4 years, he tried to play the long game with the Sussexes. He believed that with enough time, enough silence, and enough fatherly love, the rift could be healed. He wanted a family, not a fortress. But to William, this approach wasn't just ineffective, it was suicidal for the monarchy. William watched as the Sussex brand grew into a rival court, one that used royal prestige to fuel a media machine that often turned its guns back on the institution itself. For William, mercy had become the primary cause of monarchy decay. The tension finally boiled over in August 2024, during a meeting that insiders describe as the most tense encounter in recent royal memory. Charles argued for a path of private reconciliation, fearing that a public takedown would make the monarchy look vindictive and cruel. He wanted to leave a legacy of peace. William, however, stood his ground with a ferocity that reportedly stunned his father. He reminded the king of Queen Elizabeth II's ultimate strength. She never allowed the institution to be reshaped or exploited by those on the outside. During this confrontation, Charles reportedly argued that times had changed and that the monarchy needed to be more human and forgiving. William answered with a chilling line that has since become the mantra of his new regime. Exactly, and that's why we can't lead it the old way anymore. The room went silent. In that moment, the torch didn't just flicker, it effectively passed. William wasn't asking for permission anymore. He was presenting a fait accompli. The king, faced with the ironclad legal frameworks William had already built with international advisors, eventually signed the documents. He did so with profound hesitation, but he signed them nonetheless. But William's royal status clarification directive was never just about Harry and Meghan. That was merely the opening act. Once he had the king's signature, William expanded the scope of the purge. By September 2024, the new policy laid out brutal, non-negotiable criteria for what it meant to be royal. To retain active status, a family member now needed to log a minimum of 200 public duty hours per year, maintain absolute proximity to the crown, and receive sovereign approval every 5 years. The fallout was widespread. It wasn't just the Sussexes who were shown the door. Distant cousins, semi-retired royals, and at least 10 other lesser-known family members found themselves suddenly outside the circle of privilege. No more allowances. No more invitations to state events. No more private use of royal status for personal business. William's message was deafening. Being royal is not a vibe or a social media aesthetic. It is a job. It requires duty, service, and total accountability. If you are standing on the sidelines, you are out. This was the moment the British monarchy transformed into a slimmed-down powerhouse, but the cost was high. William had successfully built his fortress, but in doing so, he had created a cold professional atmosphere that left no room for the half-in, half-out lifestyle Meghan had envisioned. And as we move into the final chapter of this saga, we see the devastating results of this policy. The empire that Meghan built is not just shaking it, is officially beginning to crack under the weight of a royal reality she never saw coming. The financial numbers are in, and they are far worse than anyone imagined. The ripple effects of May 9th, 2026, have moved from the palace gates to the cold, hard corporate balance sheets of Wall Street and Silicon Valley. By late last year, the tremors of William's policy were already showing up in the numbers. A top streaming executive in Los Angeles recently confirmed that Meghan's massive media deals, originally valued at over $100 million, have been under intense review for long-term brand viability. Without the HRH status and without the protected Duchess trademark, the very foundation of her business has shifted from royal exclusivity to mere celebrity influencer status. And in the world of high-finance branding, that transition is a death knell for premium pricing. By November 2025, public speaking agencies had already begun quietly removing the royal designations from their promotional materials. Invitations to elite global summits, which once greeted her as Her Royal Highness, began to slow to a trickle. The podcast that once sat at the #1 spot on the charts saw a sharp, agonizing decline in listenership. Audiences were drawn to the royal mystique, the behind-the-palace doors appeal. Once that door was slammed shut by William's legal framework, the show became just another voice in a crowded, noisy field. The magic was gone, and the data proved it. Internally, Meghan's communications team reportedly went through 3 different rebranding strategies in less than 6 months. None of them stuck. The problem was fundamental. You cannot sell a royal fairy tale when the crown itself has issued a formal legal disclaimer. Even her philanthropic initiatives felt the sting. Donors who once signed massive checks to be associated with royalty now faced uncomfortable questions from their own PR departments. Were they supporting a member of the British royal family or a rebranded celebrity? In the world of elite charity, ambiguity equals risk. Multiple brand partners pulled back from contract renewals in the final quarter of 2025, citing a shift in brand alignment. But through this entire ordeal, Prince William has never celebrated. He has never issued a victory statement or sat for a tell-all interview. He didn't need to. For William, this wasn't about the humiliation of a sister-in-law. It was about the survival of a legacy that has lasted for 900 years. He knew that the monarchy could no longer survive as a symbolic backdrop for private profit. It needed to be a lean, professional institution. By drawing this line, he has ensured that his own children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, will inherit something worthy of respect, not a fractured tabloid circus. William's bombshell was a masterclass in modern power. He didn't argue on social media, he changed the law. He didn't fight for headlines, he fought for the Constitution. He effectively restored the power of the crown by knowing exactly when to say no. His message to the world is now the new doctrine of the monarchy. Royalty is not a souvenir you take with you when you leave. You wear the crown only if you do the work. So here we are, May 9th, 2026. The dust has finally settled, and the landscape of the British monarchy has been permanently altered. Meghan's empire stands shaken, its core identity stripped away by a single, silent signature. She thought she was playing a game of Hollywood chess, but she was actually facing a 1,000-year-old institution that had already decided the outcome before she ever stepped onto the board. The spotlight is still there, but the throne behind it has vanished. The question that remains for all of us is this: where does Meghan Markle go from here? Can a brand built on royal prestige survive as a commoner's business? Or is this the final chapter in a saga that changed the monarchy forever? William has made his move and redrawn the map of the future. Was he right to be this ruthless to save the crown, or has he caused a family rift that can never be healed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Is this the beginning of a new, stronger era for King William, or the end of the royal family as we know it? Subscribe and stay tuned as we continue to bring you the explosive truth from behind the palace walls. The royal war may have reached a turning point, but the fallout is just beginning.